Hi, and welcome to the Foundry podcast. Today is December the 11th, 2024. Today it'll be just Dan and myself, Taylor. Subs run off to the old country. So here we are.
Yep. We'll get him back. Who can stay away? Or we'll hook him up from there. So, let's talk about love, which is the purpose of our podcast, which is a workshop designed to help empower you with love over a period of time. We do a workshop where we teach only that, and it's a condensed, and it goes on for like a weekend and that kind of thing. But this particular way of going about it is to have discussions about how this works in the human life, in our lives, and have people listen to it and take it in with the idea that that's what's going to happen. And it will. And as it does, then we begin to see what does it take for this to actually happen. And it's different to talk about empowering our lives than it is to talk about love itself or what it looks like or some intellectual discussion about it. That's not what we're doing. We're focusing down on it. And I made a point with you the last time we had a podcast, Taylor, about something you were doing when you were helicoptering around. Do you remember what that was?
I do, yeah.
What happened there, and how was that event? How'd that event look to you?
Well, there's a few different things that were going on. And one is that I have some inexperience with doing what we're up to. That's not an excuse, but that places me out of my wheelhouse. So I have this tendency to let my intellect just kick in when I'm attempting to speak from the source of what we're trying to bring about in this conversation through doing this podcast and this workshop. And that is to let love kind of do some of the speaking. And I felt that in me. And then when I go to speak, my mind kind of takes over, and there's this part of my, my ego nature, my I call it my lower self, that kind of kicks in and falls back on trying to explain things away. And what that does is it chases love out of the room, even if it is present. It kind of puts a wedge between it, and it's not allowed to just come through. You stand in the way of it, and you block it. And I demonstrated that pretty well, but I didn't.
Well, what are you doing? Hold on. What are you doing right now to not do that? Yes, a little bit of the same thing. And this is a podcast that puts you on the spot because I asked you a question, and that doesn't mean it's one you rehearsed. We don't do that. So it's okay that we're not acting as a certainty. We're acting as an intention to empower ourselves. But when I look at you doing what you're doing, or what you were doing last time, or how this could or should work, this is what I see. I see an individual, you, like anyone else, like all of us, operating from the way we have learned to live in the world. We've learned to live in the world as human beings, but not human beings who are endowed with the power of love. It's here, it's everywhere. It's making the world turn. It's making everything happen in the universe that continues to happen. All the wheels keep turning. And everybody thinks, oh, it's automatic. There's nothing automatic about the universe except love. But we as human beings aren't conscious of that power and are not consciously empowering ourselves with it in a sort of what I would call shared relationship. We just haven't been taught how. And we could have been taught how had anybody known how, but we didn't. We've been learning as we grew up as a human race to take care of ourselves and fend for ourselves and develop intellect and develop emotions and develop ego. But none of that was wrapped around our ability to empower ourselves with love, which is an aspect of life. It's one of the main qualities of life that's outpouring into the universe. But if we're not conscious of it, if we're not aware of it in our consciousness, it doesn't exist for us. It has no power with us. There's a statement made in the esoteric world, which I think is quite true. If an individual is not conscious of a thing, whatever that thing is, for that person, it does not exist. It might exist for everyone else, but for us, while we're not conscious of it, it's gone. It's gone from us. And love is no different. If we're not conscious of its presence with us, then it doesn't exist for us. When we are conscious of it, something's happening in our life that causes a surgence of the love out of the heart or an impact of that energy, then it does exist for us for that period of time. And then when we become unconscious of it again, it goes away. Well, what's the value of it? The value of the human race empowering itself with love and being consciously aware of it is limitless in terms of what it can do because of the peculiar properties that love possesses, which are what? What are the properties that your life would gain if you were conscious of love, do you think?
Well, a lot. It's the only thing that can transform. It's the only thing that can, transmute or unify everything. And it's the only creator.
Well, okay, that would be a lot.
That's a lot.
If that's true, I mean, we have the word transformation, we have the word transmutation, by the way, does have a definition. It's the change of the character of a thing from one to another through the agency of fire. That's kind of what transmutation was about. Transformation, it is not just a rearrangement. When you make Jello, you get a bowl of water and you pour in some Jello packet and you wait around, and pretty soon you got Jello, and it's green or red or whatever the dye was. That's not transformation. Looks like transformation because it went from a liquid to a solid, and it went from clear to green, and the flavors in it now. But what we really did is we just added a bunch of things together, and the water got soaked up in the gelatin and it set. But that's not a true transformation. Now, in the Bible, you've got Jesus showing up at a wedding and they run out of hooch. So someone tells him, hey, we're running low on wine. And by the way, he had no intention of turning any water into wine. It was his mom that told him, hey, look, they're out of wine in there. And I don't know who was getting married, but I guess friends of theirs. So he said, what's that got to do with me? Because my time for things hasn't started yet. He was just kind of new at this love game. And Mary didn't give him any space to act or think it over or talk it over. She just turned to the guys and said, do whatever this guy tells you, and so she sort of forced him into it. And so he took a step forward, and I guess he may have, because it was the first miracle that he ever actually is reported to have gotten engaged with, he may have been a little nervous at the time, but it kind of worked out okay. The story's kind of an interesting story. But that's transformation. Nobody can turn water into wine with any kind of chemistry process that we have, except grapes. Over a period of time, if you take grape juice and put it in barrels and let it ferment and do all of that work and then filter it all out, you can get something. So transformation isn't something easy to do. but it's something love can do like that. And if it has intelligence in love, which it seems to be that it does, it can do it to the direction that is needed for the perfection of things. But the other quality love has, which I think is really interesting, and I've been kind of looking at it the last couple of days because I think it's up right now in the world, is grace. Grace is another quality of love that seems to be associated with it, because we don't know how to quantify that. We don't know how to isolate that in ourselves. You can see which part of yourself has a certain kind of emotion or a certain kind of thought or a certain kind of feeling. But grace seems to be one of those things that it's hard to name. Oh, that's it. But yet when we see something that has grace in it, it registers with us. We don't have any doubt about it. That's and something can be graceful, a dancer or a person. But the quality itself in the character just adds a certain sort of dimension of sweetness to it, which is really nice. But giving ourselves these qualities of love is not an easy task. And I think it's not an easy task because we've never learned how, and we've never grown into a place where that's something we do automatically. And yet I don't think there's a single barrier in the universe to anything embodying love or becoming conscious of love. There's no natural barriers to it. There's no natural barriers to it because I think it's a natural process. It's inevitable that a human being at a certain stage of consciousness is going to reach out to and be interested in taking love in, because it's a gift. It's a gift that can enrich the life immeasurably in ways that would take us forever to have podcasts to cover. But so why doesn't it happen? If it's available everywhere and it's available in you, and when you're helicoptering, when you're going around, not today, but the other day when you were talking about love, and you needed to step into where it is and demonstrate it. But it's like, do you remember one of those merry-go-rounds we had as kids? And they were, they were really high-tech metal merry-go-rounds in the playground, and they're probably illegal now. We get rid of everything that was that much fun and it looked too dangerous or something. But the big guys got on, or the big girls and guys get out there and they'd start spinning it really fast, and they'd throw all the little kids off because they couldn't hang on. There's that much centrifugal force which pulls it away from us. So these forces are in nature with us, and we don't know how to control them. But that was big fun. And centrifugal force, which pushes away from the center when it spins, and centripetal force, which pulls it to it, was fascinating for children to experience. And had it been a little more managed, we'd probably still find them in playgrounds. But I remember them well, and it makes you question what forces are those at work that make us feel this thing that throws us away and pulls, and how do we hold on and get it? And the closer you went to the center of it, the more intense it was. So all of these are hidden forces in nature. And when you're trying to step into love and get its magnetic field, its power to act in you, wrap down so you can experience it through you, I think we're unfamiliar with it. I don't think you're really equipped to do it. I just think it's unfamiliar to us. So I think as a baseline that, you have to try these things, and you have to look for these things in yourself and find out whether what I'm talking about is totally off the mark or whether there's a way in which it fits. It may live in me completely different than how it lives in you, but it's going to live in you. So the question is, how does it live in you in a way that works? And I look at it and think, okay, well, it might be different than how I look at it. But to me, when you're talking your way around about it, it's like that kid that's trying to get on the merry-go-round when it's already going kind of fast. There's no easy way to just grab hold, because the moment you grab hold, the thing takes you that way, and you have to kind of jump on, because once you're on, then all of you's on it. But then it's trying to throw you off. So it's kind of one of those energy things. And if you look inside, you'll see there's this place in you, and it's a invisible. Love's invisible until you give it a color or it shows up as a color. But it is magnetic, and you can feel its intensity, and you can feel its presence. And if you'll give it that much life in you, if you'll give the recognition to it of saying, oh, okay, I feel that, I can sense that, because you're talking about it. So why is it not? If you're talking about something real, there should be some sense in you that makes it real to your senses. Now, the inner senses, where love is, are different from the outer senses. For every outer sense, sight, touch, taste, smell, there's going to be an inner sense that corresponds to that. And those inner senses are going to detect love at some point. You're going to see it or feel it or touch it. Something about your outer senses is going to awaken, and then love starts to become visible, which still doesn't give it to you, because something is visible doesn't mean you know what to do with it. So this is a step of progress for the human race. Think of it that way. Think of the whole human race ready to make this step of progress into introducing ourselves to this energy, which you have it in you and saw it in you, and you were talking about it. But that doesn't make it comfortable for you to step into it and do with it something that reveals it to us. It's all practice. It's a practicable art. So do you sense what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. And it begs the question in me, if I am aware of it and I want to bring that through myself and it's a natural act, why, when you get close to it, all of a sudden does it have this, this intensity where you can't seem to just take that full step in,
Right. Okay.
where
Well,
does
there's nothing mysterious about that. Well, there is till you've done it a lot, and then the mystery of it goes away, like everything else, like the merry-go-round. You know how to jump on and hang on and ride with it once you've done it a few times. Otherwise, you step on and it throws you right off. This is not going to be any different. You're going to see it. You're going to see the place where it is, and you're going to go, okay, I'm going to get this. And so you step in. Stepping in is just part of the act. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Now it has to come through you. And everything that we've learned how to do is based on us doing it. This is the moment where you step into something that does its own living. It's going to change the order of how you function. Instead of you doing something with love, you're going to step into something that is orders of magnitude greater than we are. So it's going to do something through us. Now, you have free will. So love is never going to violate that free will. And if you step in and try to do something that love can't do with you, not that it can't do on its own, but it can't do it with you, like take control of it, express it as something that you own, then it will just move away. So it takes the act of entering into, surrendering to, and allowing a relationship between you and love to allow it to come through Taylor. Now, an instant before that, a minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds before that, while you're talking about it, you're not doing that. A moment before that, if you're talking about love, you're describing it, you're talking about it from your memory, from your observation. This is what it looks like. This is how I see it. This is what I'm doing. And the moment you step into it, that all changes. Now it's you and love doing something together. And if you put yourself in surrender to it and say to love, okay, look, I've got emotions, I've got a mind, I've got a physical body. I'm going to enter into this energy and I'm going to let it express through me. I'm going to surrender to that happening. Well, that takes trust, number one, trust in that energy being positive and harmonious and absolutely helpful. Faith in the quality and conditions of love that you've developed about it, your own judgment that this is accurate. Now, the worst that can happen is nothing happens. But if we don't take action to let it happen, then nothing's going to happen. So there you are. So my expression watching you, and not just you, but myself and anyone who's when it sneaks up automatically and you like fall in love or you suddenly express love towards something, we're caught unawares and then it just jumps through us and it works great until we suddenly realize, wow, there's something going on here. And I'm having this big sweeping feeling or energy sense and sensation, and then it goes away because we become conscious of it. That's a different experience. Here's where we are actually trying to do this consciously. Me and love together in this. And I guess it's more like a poet trying to read a poem about love, like a Wordsworth poem, that's if you take the poem of an immortal poet, or maybe a Robert Frost or a Wordsworth, and you read the poem, you're seeking to capture that sense of universal feeling that comes through the poem. And if you do, then we get a touch, I think, of what that is. But you're just making it up. So if you were written a poem about it and you're going to read the poem, then that would be you sneaking up on love again, or to go to that place where you and love are going to express something through this poetic rhythm, which is what I think makes poetry so interesting. It doesn't have to be rhyming. It can be, some of the best poetry is prose, like Shakespeare's work. But in this case, I think the act of surrender and stepping in has to come with it. And then you have to open up. See, you're having a conversation, and then you're going to reveal some kind of thing about love. So we see that feeling, oh, here that is, because I've summoned it. You can summon it to our conversation, and there it'll be. It's right there already. And if you have sensitivity to it, you'll feel it. You can feel this presence around you, a field of energy that's intense and potential. Now, how do you step into that and speak from it? If you step into it and talk about it, it won't contain love. If you step into it and make up the words, it won't contain love. If you step in it and surrender to love and don't hear any words, then you're just being silent. But the love might be there. It might be there, but there's no description coming with it. So there's kind of a combination of summoning that, entering into it, and then letting it arise in the heart or in the mind or wherever it's going to come from in a person, letting it come out and express the way in which the natural unfolding of love seeks to express itself. And that exposes you. It exposes you to failure because nothing's going to come because you can't hear it or you don't see it or you don't know. So I think there's a lot of nervousness about how to do that. But I also think that it doesn't matter if you're striving to do that, it's going to come through. So we're going to have to practice that. If we're going to do podcasts on empowering with love, we have to try our own experience with holding our human nature and the nature of love together as two parts of ourselves, two parts of life, and let the two express together. But let love have the lead in it because that's what you want. You want love to come into the space and have the sense of direction, not because it's superior to you. It isn't. Love doesn't have a sense of superiority to anything, but because that's how it will be revealed. If love comes into you and joins you and you take the lead, then you're talking about it. You're saying, I'm having this feeling of love and it's kind of blue and it's shiny and it feels great. You see, that's us talking about it and it's not revealing love. But if you come into it and genuinely put yourself second and let the love come out and touch through you, in other words, summoning it, asking it to say, okay, you speak, you let them know you're real. You show people what you are. I want that to happen, and really actually do want it to happen, which I know you do. See, I know you do actually want that. So how do you actually let it? And then watch and see what comes next. You don't know what's going to come next because love doesn't invent itself until the circumstances require it to. That's one of the disconcerting things about love is it's instantaneously creative all the time, which is thrilling. If you want to be on the edge of love and be thrilled by it, then let it take you, let it experiment through you, let it create through you the way in which it does. And it's always a surprise to my perspective. So that's part of it. Enter into that magnetic field where love joins you and meets you, and then make yourself available emotionally and mentally and physically, and wait. And if you do, you'll see that love doesn't wait. It's already expressing. We're running to catch up. See, all of a sudden, you're waiting for love to tell you what it wants you to say or something like that. It's not doing that. It's automatically expressing. Now you've got to realize, oh hell, it's already running. So now how do I catch up to it? Well, it's just a question of letting it have some space in you to do that and letting it kind of integrate with your sense of presence if you're going to have a conversation with it. So I don't know if this makes sense to you or to anyone else. And I look for a simile or a metaphor that'll show you something about what I'm doing. But it's look, jazz music is about as close as you can come. A jazz musician that's playing along like crazy, and he's coming to that place in the riff where he wants the sax guy to join him. Well, how does sometimes if you watch musicians, they know they've got a certain amount of notes to the bar and they've got 6 more notes, which doesn't sound like, if they're playing pretty fast, that sounds like not much time to us, but to musicians that are in the beat of the music, that's a long time. It's going to be 5 more notes before it's your turn. And all I have to do is just look at you. And if you're intense in the moment, then you know that when you get to that 5th note, because this is an ordered, measured musical progression, then it's time for you to come in with your note. And then you go with what you're doing, or you go with the person who's still playing, or however it goes. So musicians learn how to do this. They learn how to integrate with each other. And they learn how to integrate with the music that's coming through that other guy, which if he's improvising like jazz, you have no idea what it's going to be. And neither does he, because he's improvising. He hasn't, it's not rehearsed itself in his head. So he just waits until that note becomes tossed over to him, and then he just blows his sax, and out comes the first note. And right behind that comes the next note, and the next, and the next, and the next. And then he's just riding that flow. And if you watch Esperanza Spalding playing bass, here's this little tiny girl, and she's playing a stand-up bass with some of the best jazz musicians in the world. Just watch her play. And she's just in heaven because she's just riding that wave of love. And she'll sing with it. Her what's Wonderful World, which she does, which is an old Satchmo song. If you watch her doing Wonderful World on the YouTube, you get to see love in action as far as I'm concerned. And I think that that's an example of what's coming in the musical world next. Love is going to enter into a conscious expression with humanity through the musician, because that's the easiest place to get through. The rest of us stagger around trying to figure out how to start a conversation with love. But musicians are already just flowing, and so it's just a matter of bringing it down in and adding it in. But if they're not consciously opening up to that, it's not going to come through. It will be empty. The music won't carry that sense of connection. See, because love, in addition to transformation and transmutation, which happens in the music, it does unity. Unity is the connection of any part to the whole. And it can be felt. When love comes through the music, you can feel the union with everything. Everything's suddenly connected. And then if you're sensitive to the joy that's released from that connection, then we feel the grace coming through. It's a very powerful, wonderful thing. And there's no reason for it not to be there in just a conversation if we're having that conversation, but not if we're not consciously including it. It's not going to happen on its own, because free will is one of the elements. Why it's an element, I don't know. It was the design of the same system that put love in motion in the universe, put in the requirement that free will in that which is unconscious of love, which is really a striking, questionable idea. If you're going to put that which is unconscious of love in charge of whether or not love is included, that could slow you down a lot. How are you going to get human beings that are unconscious of love to recognize, surrender to, and reveal love to themselves and each other? Well, that's the challenge we're in, actually. And it seems impossible. And a lot of people would tell you it is. And maybe existentialists would tell you it is, and maybe something, I don't know who tells you it isn't possible. But I won't, because love can do anything. Anything it needs to do, it can find a way to do. So in the grand design, humanity may have taken a long time to get here, but now it's time for us to begin to consciously include love in what we do. And that brings a whole nother set of challenges in, because what is an unlovely thing to do, which is, in a religious perspective, what is a sin? Well, a sin is an act against love, basically, which is an act against unity, an act against being connected to something that's connected to everything. So we get into this tangled up space where we don't want to do that. We don't want to act against this, but love doesn't care any more than you care whether your child falls. You care if your child falls down when he's taking his first steps, but you expect that to happen. So you're prepared for it. And there's nothing wrong with not being able to be good at running around a room, because we're just learning how to walk. And I don't think life's any different. It's got lots of patience with humans and other things. So does that, I don't know, Taylor, I'm looking at how I can help you step into that energy.
I appreciate that.
But it starts with you realizing that energy temporarily for you looks like something other than your normal consciousness.
No, I've been doing this a while with Dan, and whenever I turn towards it, I can sense it. That's not where my hang up is. I can definitely put my awareness there and it's there. And I know it's real. And that's completely done already. That's, for me, stepping in and being able to allow it to pour through me. That's where, this podcast is going to succeed, because as soon as I can step in and accomplish that, then I can deliver what it is that we're trying.
Are you doing that right now?
No, not successfully.
Well, my question is, why not?
Yeah.
Well, there is a why not, and it's not about inadequacy or see, it's really a question. Why not? What is it in your lack of a habit? See, the habit of love would be great.
I feel myself blocking it. So
yeah, well, no, you're not necessarily blocking it.
I can feel a nervousness inside of my chest.
Well, that's normal. That's it. Ask any performer walking out on stage to give their first line in a play or to start the song. And so that's going to be there. That's the energy you need to actually do it. Love is dynamic. It is so dynamic that nothing vibrates at that speed. The speed of light is 186,000 miles in 1 second. That's probably slow as far as love is concerned. So we have to get up to speed, and up to speed means you need some, take a breath, I'm going to do this. But in the end, you're going to have to step out on stage. And how many times has there been go back to when you were in grade school, and I've done this with all my kids who were doing dancing and acting, and I've been there myself doing acting, where there's a director or a producer standing out there in the audience and the little kids out there getting ready to go out on stage as his turkey at Thanksgiving and gobble or something that we're going to do. And he's standing there frozen in his tracks or her tracks. And that director's going, okay, come on out. And they're like, not going, not moving. And look, that can happen to you anywhere in life. When I was taking basic training in the military, they give you a grenade and they tell you, go ahead and pull a pin. Pull a pin. You're no fucking way. I'm not pulling the pin on this goddamn thing, because as soon as I let go of it, 5 seconds later, it's going to blow up and kill me. And it can, because it's a live grenade they're giving you. You have practice dummy ones where you learn to pull the pin, because once you pull a pin, it's not counting down. But if you relax your hand that's holding the clip, it's going to go poing. Now you're counting down. And so you're holding your tension. It's like, and there's somebody there with you in that stupid hole. You're in a hole doing this, by the way, so everybody else doesn't get killed if you do. But there's some poor guy that's a sergeant, and he's in the hole with you, so that if you do drop the damn thing, he can do something about it if he's got time. So it's one of those tense moments of your life, and it's no different from that 5-year-old trying to go out on stage to speak their first word in the play they're in. And what's the first word? Gwendolyn, where are you? Juliet. So we panic and can't even remember what that word is. Gone. That word's gone. I don't even know what the first word is. And someone's going, Juliet. You think, how could you forget the name of the play? Romeo and Juliet, but that's your first word that you're going to speak is Juliet. Gone. It's gone completely. That nervousness is natural. But the moment that you speak the first word, the second word follows behind it. And it's like pulling a string. It just keeps coming. And if you've learned your lines. But so nervousness, okay, we get that. Nervousness with love, like nervousness with anything, is going to be there, because that's the energy you need to make the step. So why aren't you doing it? What's next? What other reason do you have?
None. I got no reason.
No, I got nothing. Well, this is why this is an empowerment workshop, so that people can watch and see that they're doing the same thing. If you were watching this and you're not doing it, then you haven't learned how yet. And I want you to show me who in the world is doing it. Who? How many people do you see that are continuously integrated with and flowing through their life with that power? Not just imagining love, the power of it's coming along with their action. Every single act they do, every touch they make, every big act or little act carries that in it.
I got nothing.
You,
No one.
well, I know that's the thing. We are really mostly inexperienced with love in the human race, but there are those who have done it. There are those who can do it every second of their life. Every breath they take is infused with love, and it's not unconsciously infused, it's joyfully infused. See that you wonder, well, how am I going to
It's
ever
true.
remember? Yeah, yeah.
And it leaves a mark, it's like even the people that have come before us and are gone now, and you read their words or their stories, or I agree with you with music too, because it takes you into the eternal, in that now place where love is living and you're just in it, and it comes alive in you and you experience it. But even people that have come before us or teachers of, even religious teachers and whatnot, when you read what they're saying or you actually get a touch of that essence that they're trying to convey to you, it lives in you for those moments. And it's like their mark is still there, that it's still, the power is still carried through it, even if they're dead, even if they're gone.
Well,
And
okay, but many
so
of
there
them.
there is that to turn towards. But I know what you're saying. There's nowhere to turn to that you can see a living expression of it out in the world as an example. As
Okay, but what were they doing? What were they doing? See, most of those experiences, give me liberty or give me death, things that stick with us as having happened in the past, that somehow have that moment involved in them, that makes a tremendous impression, so deep an impression that we remember it. It continues with the group of people who it experienced it with. Many of them, most of them, 99% of them weren't conscious that it was love that they were engaged with, because love doesn't require that you be conscious of you engaging it for it to work through you. What it does require is a set of circumstances in which it can work, because it's always here and it's always looking to express itself through an opening of human spirit, a human spirit that gives a monumental act of sacrifice of itself to something greater, or that opens itself up to the art of beauty or expresses a great truth. Love has a number of ways in which it's prepared to suddenly leap into the space with you. So this slowing it down to have a common conversation with love seems inadequate on a certain level, but we can't create those great monumental moments with every breath we take. And we're not in a circumstance where we got to shout out, I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country or something like that. We're just having a conversation about how to include this phenomenally powerful, intelligent, loving energy out of life that wants to join the human race and elevate it to a place of beauty and truth and simplicity that it has never experienced before. We're ready for that co-creation. We're ready for it. And I think that we've been getting ready for all the time we've been developing human ego and suffering for the lack of love. We've been suffering for the lack of love since we began, because we couldn't find it with either hand, because you can't identify what you don't know about. And somebody saying to you, there's an energy out here that you can get to know, and then it's called God, or it's called life, or it's called love, doesn't really reveal it to you. It takes slowing things down, getting like a child, getting down to the place where you can find it, where you can bring yourself to that intimacy with this energy. Well, having had a few million years of development in our emotional makeup, our physical makeup, and our intellectual or mental makeup, and the integration of that into being able to just walk and chew gum at the same time, it's time for you and me and others to begin to integrate this truthful thing into our expression. I think, and I think others do too. So I also think it's far easier for some than it is for others. It's like everything else. If you get a bunch of kids together on a playground, somebody's going to be really good at throwing the ball, and other people will just throw it straight down into the dirt. You know, that's how it goes. They'll catch up. But love is one of those things that doesn't require so much a great physical capacity or a great intellectual capacity or even a great emotional range. It can just happen because it does require some of the things I think it does take, which you actually have some of, I think, which is why you're at the place where you can do this. I think it takes absolute humility. Humility is a really understated quality. And one of the spiritual teachers made the remark that of all the things that the Christ demonstrated in the Jesus experience, that was the thing that was most astounding to the people observing who are spiritual, mature spiritual observers, was the absolute humility towards love, and that love possesses itself. Hmm. Now, we don't know how to define that word, actually, and school teaches nothing about this kind of stuff. I've been through some school, mostly inadequate. I grew up in Alaska and in logging camps and places where I would go home and work out the math problems with my father, and then I'd go back and teach the teacher how to do it because percentages were just out of their picture. So my education was a bit limited, but I think humility is one of those things that nobody knows how to teach, really. Then you can go look at an Oxford definition of humility, and it'll have a lot of things about it. And if you really took the time to read the whole thing in the Oxford Dictionary, or one of the good ones that's been around a long time and not some casual interpretation, you could get to the essence of it, which is humble, which is small, and it's self-depreciating. But it's basically, if you take it away from the emotional levels of it, like being humble, you realize that it's the ability to be taught, the ability to receive, the ability to have reverence towards that which you are being humble towards. Humility requires an essence of reverence. And if you're going to express yourself towards love, you're going to have these qualities in you so that you can receive love, because it can't fit through something that doesn't act in accordance with its own sense of existence. Now, you've got to check yourself on these things and not just, well, I'm humble, sure. I'm so damn humble, it's amazing. I can even talk to other people. Because arrogance, we know what arrogance is. These petty servants that are supposed to be serving us, where the hell are they? The arrogance that people express towards others tells you without even a doubt in your mind that that person's not within a bull's roar of love, because love's not going anywhere near arrogance, is it? But yet it's always there. You can't separate yourself from it any more than you can separate yourself from air. Air is all around you. You can cease to breathe, but not for very long, because your body's going to demand some air. Well, love's all around you. But if you're arrogant, you're going to be just holding it at bay. But if you can bring some humility into your heart and into your sense of reverence towards other things in life, then suddenly you're calling love close to you into that space. So that place inside you where you say, okay, there it is. We're talking about it. I'm circling it and I'm talking about it. Now I want to step in and express from it. That humility is going to have to be one of the ways in, I think. Now, there may be other ways in, which we can look at. Yeah, well, yeah. And all right, so you've got the humility and you get it. There's love and you're going to step in. And now what happens what do you hope to have happen? And how's it going to take effect? See, I'll give you a clue. And the reason why we can talk about it for a few minutes, then I can say, well, are you doing it? And then you look at me and go, no, I'm not doing it. And it's like, well, what happened? How did I not do it? Because the fundamental root premise wasn't being met, which is you and love in the same space, and you staying aware of that union. If you stop being aware of the union, then that part of the union goes away. And I don't know, it's if you're kissing somebody and you forget that you're kissing somebody, then the kiss is going to lose some of its dynamic activity, isn't it? I mean, maybe you've never been kissed, but my memory of it, it's been a while, but my memory of it is, what's that? Are you whispering with one of your, who are you talking to?
Miss Olivia here.
Hi, Olivia.
She's
pleasure to
beckoning
see
me on
you.
where my motherly duties may call me away now.
It's 2:15. All right,
Okay.
Can she give us a couple minutes and I'll wrap this up?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, the stepping into it is going to require that you stay aware of it and that you act in consort with it. You've got your end of the kiss to hold up if you want the other end of the kiss to be there with you. And the moment that you forget that you're kissing because one of your delightful children steps in and draws your attention to it, then the kiss loses some of its energy. Whatever's happening in the kiss, it's gone. And that's a hard first step to think about. But embracing love should be a constant kiss, a constant state of joy, a constant state of engaging something so thrilling, so deeply, deeply connecting to you, and then you to what? You to God, you to life, you to angels, you to every single living thing, that you don't want to break the kiss.
That's a really good picture because it
No.
requires that receptivity and that humility as well.
Yes. And you can act in it.
Mm-hmm.
You can speak and retain that unity, retain that engagement. And you're not dragging somebody around with you in a lip lock. Love is merged in a space, in a way, and with a will, and with an intention that you and it together can continuously demonstrate your union with love in a way that empowers you with it and gives love empowerment in the space with your daughter and with everyone else. And that's what we're looking to go do, or to practice, or to get engaged with. And then we'll call it for today, because it's always good to end on a kiss.
Well, we'll make out next time.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Dan.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Don't you wanna know about love? Wanna know love? Don't you wanna know? Don't you wanna know about love? Wanna know?